it is a pleasure to have you on, particularly in these very interesting times.
Well, interesting times is an understatement. Yeah, it is. It is a lot of chaos and lots of uncertainty. That's a fact.
Well, and that's the bottom line. Everybody's got their popcorn out to find out what's going to happen after the fall of Bashar al-Assad. Obviously, he's been in civil war for 13 years. The Iranians were heavily involved. The Russians were heavily involved. You got the Turkish involvement. You got the Israeli situation because, the Golan Heights and the issues there. It's just in a mess. Charlie Foxtrot, I think, accurately summarizes it. But Bashar al-Assad, bad guy. So nobody's really that disappointed that he's gone, considering his murderous regime. But what is going to fill the void here? We had multiple factions of different organizations, some of them Islamist fundamentalist. And okay, so the way I've been viewing it, and please correct me if you think this is an inaccurate assessment, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So you got all these different factions who are more than happy to sort of fight collectively the Bashar al-Assad regime. But now that he's gone, who fills the power void?
I 100% agree with you. I think your assessment is spot on because we had seen, you may recall when the Obama administration had tried to affect the regime change in Syria with Bashar al-Assad, and we were, funding all these allegedly moderate rebel groups, which were nothing more than offshoots of al-Qaeda and several other kinds of violent Islamic agreements. But hey, we were engaging in the friend of my enemy is my friend situation. So we were funding all these groups. But you famously remember that some of the Obama CIA funds went to one group, some of the Obama Pentagon funds went to another group, and then they end up turning on each other. And so they were as distracted as anybody else. Well, this guy here appears to have figured out how to solve part of that problem by getting all these different factions working together, or at least he assembled enough factions that could effectively work together, and so they did. And then they started this march, but then because of the absolute rot of the internal security forces in Syria, they basically just marched on the capital, not unlike the Taliban did in against the Afghanistan security forces because of the rot there, and there wasn't even much fighting, and it was very similar how those two things came about. But now comes the real question. This guy's saying, Jolani, the leader of the HTS, that was the umbrella group over all this, has said, hey, we're kind of moderate now. We just want to govern. We don't want to, start this Islamic caliphate that's going to suppress all these people, all these Christians and Druze and, other kinds of minorities. They're fine. We're not going to harm them. But that's not what he said earlier in his career. In 2014, he said almost the exact opposite. So now it's going to depend on what happens later on. I'm guessing that he's going to act like a good guy for now, but we'll see if this coalition holds together, as you just mentioned, and then we'll see whoever comes out. Do they still have that same moderate view, or do they go Taliban-esque and start changing when they get into power?
Well, during this period of absolute dysfunction, I mean, I just talked with Joe Pollock from Breitbart, and the Israelis retook that base that Syria had and the Golan Heights, which, of course, helps Israel in terms of its security. The Turks now have an opportunity to advance into this, disarray, this defenseless region, and they, of course, had their eyes on the situation for a while. And the Turks, I understand, will be very influential on a going forward basis to see who actually comes into power. The Iranians, it looks like they pulled the plug. The Russians looks like they pulled the plug. So you don't have them coming to the aid of the Assad regime. And I'm not sure where either of those two countries fit into the equation now because their hands seem to be full. I guess I'm just kind of at a loss. That's why I say my popcorn is going to be out for a long time on this one.
Yeah. See, interestingly, so Israel has done more than just, secure the Golan Heights. They're actually, as of this morning, continuing to move closer to Damascus. So, and we don't know how far they're going to go yet, how much territory they're going to take, what they're going to do with it. They have been bombing incessantly throughout Syria and destroying all kinds of ammunition depots, weapons depots, basically just crushing the ability of anyone to rise up to even use this for the foreseeable future.
Right.
Then in the north, you have the Turks who have been, the actual Turkish army has been making some inroads, and they've had troops in Syria for a long time, and there's Turkish-backed group. Here's the biggest problem for us, is moving more aggressively against the Syrian Democratic Forces our proxy. So you have two NATO countries has proxies going against each other in the northeast part of Syria, and this just has a lot of opportunities to go bad. There's already a lot of bad blood between the U.S. and Turkey on a number of
Yeah.
other fronts. And, and obviously Turkey and Israel are not on the best of terms as well. So you may need a bucket of popcorn for this one, and maybe a spare.
Exactly. Well, insofar as the Turks concerned, is this a potential opportunity to perhaps right the ship a little bit in terms of our relations with Turkey? Could a Trump administration sort of, diplomatically reach out in an effort to, forestall the Turks supporting some radical Islamic form of government in Syria?
Yeah, I don't know. That's going to be tough to do because Erdogan is an opportunist, and he will exploit any and everybody he can, and he'll work with somebody only to the extent that it gives him benefit. And if Trump doesn't come in and have some benefit for him, then he's probably not very willing to do that. And Trump has got a difficult task to navigate with the Syrian Democratic Forces, because does he just say, okay, everything that we've done up to this point, to include when he supported them during his first term, that now he's just going to say, okay, well, Erdogan wants this, so you guys are all on your own. We're going to withdraw all our guys, and good luck to you. Now, I will say that should be the first thing he does is withdraw our troops for our sake. But it's going to be, I don't deny, it's going to be a tough play to what do you do with the Syrian Democratic Forces? Do you give them some other kind of support? Do you negotiate something with Erdogan? And what if Erdogan doesn't do it and they literally kill thousands upon thousands of the Kurds in that area? It could get ugly.
Very ugly. And insofar as Israel, I know they've been striking chemical weapons facilities, rocket missile arsenals to again take away any ability of whatever future government might have to launch it against them. Some have suggested that by doing so, that frees up the airspace and gives them free reign to hit Iran and maybe wipe out the Iranian nuclear program during this period of time before Trump takes over. Any thoughts on that theory?
Yeah, I mean, practical, whether that was the intention or not, that certainly is the effect, because now then there's no Syrian to even worry about with air defense or anything else, and they have destroyed much of what might have existed on top of all the other targets that they've been servicing. And you had Jack Keane on Fox News a couple of days ago. It recommended exactly that Trump should go in and basically go to war with Iran, which I'm 100% against. That is not a good play. We do not need to go to war with Iran. In fact, what all this has shown is that Iran is substantially weaker than we thought,
Yes.
and now they're even weaker still. They are no threat to us. So going to war with them gains us absolutely nothing and could cost us a great deal. So we can contain them. We do not need to go to war with Iran.
Well, I like hearing that because I don't want to go engage in another war. But let's face it, the Israelis told the Biden administration where to go. They went and defended themselves. They went into to Gaza. They dealt with the Houthis and Hamas, or Hezbollah and Hamas, very successfully. So maybe Israel just decides, you know what? While Iran is weak, while Syria is decimated, we're just going to blow up ourselves some nuclear facilities. So there's that military angle, but then there's also the question I have burning in the back of my head as I read about the Israel strikes on the chemical weapons facilities. Isn't there any collateral concern about blowing up chemical weapons facilities and releasing the chemical weapons out into the atmosphere? Same question goes for radiation when you're bombing all these centrifuges. Is that a legitimate concern?
It absolutely is, but with that also causes me to be a little skeptical that there are all of these chemical weapons factories, in all the places in Syria, because that's exactly what you would see. You would see it released into the air. It can't be any other way. And at least so far, and there's plenty of international organizations that monitor that stuff, that we haven't had any reports of that. I think all the targets up to this point have genuinely been military targets. The regime, I mean, I'm talking about tanks and artillery pieces, conventional weapons depots, arms depots, etc. So I don't think that's going on. I will say, though, that let's don't get too much ahead of ourselves on the Israeli success, because they have had enormous tactical success, spectacularly so. But the medium and long-term issues, because none of the issues that were caused 10/7, for example, have been resolved, and a lot of the civilians that have been killed in Lebanon and in the West Bank and in Gaza, there's going to be some medium and long-term difficulties for Israel to have to navigate what's happened as a result of those. So they're not out of the woods by any stretch.